Do you want to make pancakes and you're trying to feed a crowd and you end up standing over the stove flipping them one at a time? Well, I have a solution for you, and it's sheet pan cakes. So we're going to be making pancakes on a sheet pan, and it is just a great way to save some time, and they still turn out great. I'm Judy Matusky. I am a registered dietitian and culinary nutritionist with Athens Nutrition, where we are always trying to cook healthy and light with recipes that generally are 5-ish ingredients so that it's not so overwhelming. Because I think eating well and cooking should not take a lot of time, but we certainly want really good results. So today we're going to do the sheet pan pancake. I have pretty much shifted all my pancake making over to this because it just works really well for me. So I'll walk you through the steps. And when it comes to pancakes, I have made many pancake recipes in my lifetime, and although they're good, they're never like great. So I'm like, why am I spending my time actually trying to make pancakes from scratch? But I never really found a great box mix that I really liked from not only a taste perspective, but texture and also in just a good nutritious kind of balance. Until Kodiak Cakes came along, and I have no affiliation with them, but I just love their pancake mix. Like I said, I have tried many and have made many. The flavor's great, and you can put them together pretty easily, and we'll talk a little bit about why that nutritional balance is so good. But why don't we go ahead and get started, and we're going to put this, I'm just going to show you how we do it. So it's obviously, I'm sure you've made pancakes before, so this isn't any revelation, but we're just gonna mix the ingredients. And I already have on the back of the box, it gives you a lot of different options of how to make different things with this mix. And it does give you this recipe on the back of the box. And it's just so simple, so it's almost like you can't really call it a recipe, but it's just their mix. I got this huge box from Costco, and I've just been buying it there because I do make these pancakes pretty frequently. You can get this though in any supermarket, so you don't have to go to a specialty market to pick it up. So to make this, we're going to do a half sheet pan, and it's 2.5 cups of the Kodiak cake mix. I already have a 1.5 cups in here. I just started to measure it out, so I'm just going to do another cup. And if you read the directions on the side, or the nutrition panel on the side of the box, it says that 1/2 cup of the mix is what's considered to be a serving. And I find that is probably about 2 of these squares that I'm going to show you, or 2 decent sized pancakes. So we're not making this stack of pancakes as a serving. I'm not even sure where that started and why we feel like we have to eat a stack of pancakes as a serving for breakfast. I mean, that's crazy, because if you're making traditional pancakes, it's pretty much a cake that you're baking in a pan. It's not really, there's nothing really that's nutritional value really coming from that pancake, and it can just be so heavy. So this is just a little bit of a lighter way to eat your pancakes, and in a more appropriate portion size for most of us. All right, so we have 2.5 cups of the mix, and then what's nice about the Kodiak cakes is that the blend of their ingredients, it's all 100% whole grain. So this is not gluten-free, so definitely not for those of you who need that. It's basically 100% whole wheat flour and 100% oat flour. And the way they sort of boost the protein, and that's sort of what they're known for, is this pancake mix has more protein in it, is that they do add some whey protein and a little bit of extra wheat protein. So that's the way that they're getting this protein level high. But it is going to be naturally higher in fiber because it's all 100% whole grain. And those are the kind of things we're looking for when it comes to breakfast and when we're trying to sort of put something like a pancake together, because it really can be pretty much like eating cake for breakfast if we're not trying to maybe make some modifications. So we have the mix. Now when it comes to the milk, and this is where on the instructions it will tell you, you can elevate the protein content by what you add to their mix. If you just add water, which is the fastest and easiest, a serving is still going to be around 14 grams of protein, which is phenomenal, really. Pancakes are going to be a couple grams typically, but if you're with this mix, you're getting to 14. And I think for a lot of us, shooting for about 20 grams of protein, 15 to 20 grams of protein in the morning is a pretty good place for us to start out our day, so it's not just all carbohydrates, which is what, you know, pancakes would tend to be like. So even if you're just mixing the mix with water, you're still gonna get about 14 grams of protein. I like to boost it a little bit more, so I'm just gonna use regular milk, and it's equal parts mixed to liquid. So I'm not gonna get out my liquid measuring. I'm just gonna, it's one thing less to clean. So I'm just gonna do about 2.5 cups of liquid. And again, when you're making a mix, I mean, you don't have to really be exact with the measurements as long as you're pretty close. All right, so, and this is a relatively thin batter. All right, so I am using regular cow's milk, and the reason for that is that I do want the extra protein. If you're gonna use almond milk, you can, but you just won't get any added protein from that. Which is, you know, again, fine, because you're still going to get 14 grams from the mix itself. If you really wanted a plant milk that would give you the equivalent of the protein in like a cow's milk, this is a fat-free cow's milk, because we'll pick up some fat, healthy fat other places. You could use soy milk. Soy milk would be a really good alternative. Not only you're going to get some good protein, but you'll also get some good healthy plant fat in the soy milk. That would be a better option than the almond milk. So we have that, and the to boost the protein a little bit more, we're going to go ahead and put extra eggs into this mix. So the recipe calls for, I'm going to do that where you tap your egg. The recipe calls for adding two eggs, but I actually prefer doing it with 4 eggs because you're making quite a bit, and this just, again, just adds a little bit of extra protein to it, and I feel like it fluffs up a little bit better when you add the extra 2 eggs. So I kind of like that. So I'm doing 4. If you read the box though, and you're following the box, it's calling for 2 eggs. All right. So this is technically, as we pour it into the sheet pan, like if you go by the serving sizes, it's supposed to serve like 5 people. I feel like it's a lot. I feel like it could serve a lot more than that. We'll talk about that, but I don't, normally eat, I usually eat 1 square if I'm going to have this for breakfast, but you may certainly want more than that. All right, so let's just mix this around. I just want to break up those yolks a little bit. And again, when it comes to pancakes, and when you're mixing the batter, many of you, probably know this, but you don't really want to overmix pancake batter because it will just make the pancakes a little bit more tough, and you want them to be fluffy and you want them to be, relatively light. So you want to mix until you everything sort of comes together, but not over mixing. And as you know, if you've made them before, it's okay for the pancakes batter to have a little bit of lumps in it. It's fine. They'll just cook out. So we're just going to bring this together, and again, that was 2.5 cups of the Kodiak cake mix with equal parts liquid, and I used 2.5 cups of fat-free cow's milk, and again, like I had said, dairy fat, although can certainly fit within someone's healthy eating pattern. I like to pick up the fat from plant-based fats in my eating plan. So I usually do go with the lower fat dairy when I'm cooking with it or using it, and then I add healthy plant fats a little bit later on. Okay, so I would say that's about it. So if you want to, we're not going to add anything to this. You could add some blueberries to this. You could add some, bananas and walnuts and different things. You could mix them in if you wanted to make 1 big sheet pan of blueberry pancakes or 1 big sheet pan of maybe banana walnut pancakes. You can. I'm going to show you something that I think is a little bit kind of fun, because then you can make a bunch of different ones on the same sheet pan. So see how liquid this is? I mean, it's pretty thin. So let me pull this over the sheet pan. Now I have my sheet pan lined with parchment. You don't have to, but again, anytime I can have fewer dishes to clean, I'm all for it. So I go through a lot of parchment because I use it for a lot of things, but you don't have to. You just spray your sheet pan with a cooking spray, and then so that they don't stick. All right, so we're going to empty all of this onto the sheet pan, and just pop that in the sink. Drawer here. And we're just going to spread it out. So we kind of just want it to go to all the edges, right? And so, you can see it makes a lot. So, I mean, I think if you were to cut this into the pieces that I would cut it into, and I'll show you at the end here, I feel like it serves more than 5 people. But I guess it just depends on who you're feeding, right? And how hungry everybody is. But, all right, so that's pretty well evenly spread out. Let me just pop this over here. And now, this is kind of the fun part. So you could just make this like this and pop it right in the oven now for about 15 minutes. Pancakes are ready to go. You don't have to add anything to it. And I often don't. So when I make this, I'll often make it just like this. And what I love about it, if I'm not going to be serving this to a lot of people at one time, I bake it off, I let it cool, I cut it into squares, and I'll show you, and then I wrap them and freeze them and put them in my freezer. And then in the morning I'll pop out one, pop it in the toaster, and I'll tell you about reheating it. But it's super easy, so it's a great way to prep ahead, and then you have these higher protein, high fiber, really well balanced and nourishing and satisfying sheet pancakes that you can have throughout the week. So it's up to you depending on what you're doing with it. Okay, so we're gonna just divide this into 4 quadrants, and we're gonna top it with some different things. So if you're feeding a crowd, this is kind of fun, because then, if someone wants maybe some apples and cinnamon on theirs, they can take an apple and cinnamon square. Or if they want chocolate chips, whether it's kids or adults, you could do one with chocolate chips. Blueberries you could do, or any kind of berry. I'm gonna do, because this is what I have, my husband loves banana walnut pancakes. It's one of his favorites, so I usually try to make those for him on the weekend. And so I am going to take a quadrant, and make sure you guys can see that. I think you can. All right, and I'm just going to take the banana, and I'm just going to do some slices, and we're just going to drop it down right on top. And this is just going to bake. This will sit on the top, and it'll bake up a little bit over the pancake. And they'll soften up, and you want a relatively thin slice. That one wasn't very thin, but relatively thin slice, so they do kind of soften up by the baking, and they'll get a little bit caramelized, not as much as they would if you were doing this in a pan. So if you were making banana walnut pancakes in a regular skillet, you would be able to caramelize those bananas a little bit more, but this works pretty well too. All right, so I have the bananas, and I'm just going to sprinkle some chopped walnuts right on top as our 1 quadrant. And this is where you get the healthy fat comes in. So walnuts are going to provide us that nice healthy fat that we like to have to balance out. So we've got our high fiber carbohydrate from the pancake mix. We have the protein that's in the pancake mix, but also from the eggs and the milk that we're adding. And now we're also bringing in a little healthy fat using nuts. Nuts or seeds or nut butters would be a nice addition to this. All right, so here we have our banana walnut quadrant. And I chopped up an apple. It's not even a whole apple. This is probably just half of a small apple. So I have this chopped, and I'm going to put that on another square. So pop that in, and it looks kind of nice. I'll show you. I did bake one ahead of time, because this takes about 15 minutes to bake. So rather than wait, I'll show you the one that I made a little bit earlier. All right, so we'll put the apples on this one, and I happen to have some cinnamon sugar that I had mixed up for some cookies over the holidays. So I'm just going to take that. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of the cinnamon sugar. You could just do straight cinnamon. You could just cinnamon and nutmeg. That would be great. Cinnamon, nutmeg, and ginger would be great. But since I have this, I thought I would go ahead and put that on. And then just for kind of fun, I have some dark chocolate chips. So how about in another square, let's sprinkle on some chocolate chips. All right. And then the last one I'm just going to keep plain, so that we'll just, if I had some berries, you could do frozen blueberries or raspberries or fresh or frozen strawberries, whatever. That would be great, but I'm going to leave that one plain. So here we have it. So here's your sheet pan pancakes, and you have the 4 quadrants, so everybody can kind of pick maybe their favorite. I'm going to go ahead and pop this in the oven, and it really does bake for about 15 minutes. It says 15 to 20 minutes on the box, but I found that 15 minutes is pretty much all it takes. All right, so here it is all finished. So I baked this one off just before I went on camera. So there's our banana walnut, and you can see the banana's kind of round and caramelized a little bit. Our chocolate chips sort of like sunk down into the batter a little, and here's our apple cinnamon, and then we have the plain. So when serving, so you can see this is pretty big. So I kind of cut it in half, and then I cut it in half again, on the long side. And then what I usually do, if you cut it in half, then you're ending up with 8 pieces. Those are pretty big. So I think on the shorter side, I'm gonna come down and cut it in thirds.
And they're still pretty nice size squares. All right, so if we wanted to take the apple cinnamon here, I'm just gonna fold it up and use my hands and put it on the plate. So 1 square is probably not gonna be enough, and that's so, I mean, a serving is definitely 2, for sure. It's probably even a little bit more than that, but I think 2 would be ideal. So here, with this apple cinnamon, it's already going to have a little sweetness from the sugar, the cinnamon sugar that we put on top. What I love to do is, I don't always love to like load it up with a ton of syrup, but I love some powdered sugar. So a lot of times that's what I'll do. I'll do a little powdered sugar on top. I would also maybe even sprinkle some chopped pecans on here, or some almonds. If you wanted to add some nuts, maybe a little dollop of some peanut butter would be great. That's bringing in that little bit of that healthy fat. So I think this is a great option. You know, again, we're getting, you know, 12 squares out of this, which is definitely serving at probably 6 people easily. You could do, which I have done, you can do 2 sheet pans at a time. So I just, you know, I'll do 1 sheet pan and then I'll do another, and I just bake them both at the same time. So if you really have a crowd, you could do that. But these are really great. Now, what I would do as far as, if you're going to make these ahead, which is what I do often, I will take usually one of these, and I kind of wrap it and I put it in a freezer. I stack them in a freezer bag. Then in the morning, what I do is I take it out and I put it in my toaster, and I toast it for as long as my toaster will toast. Because I want to crisp it up a little bit, because I like it when it has a little bit of a crisper texture. Then I'll just finish it in the microwave for maybe 20 seconds or so to warm up the middle, since I'm taking it from frozen and putting it in my toaster. So it doesn't necessarily defrost it all the way. So from the freezer in your toaster for as long as you can, you know, set your toaster for as many seconds or minutes you can put your toaster at. Then pop it in the microwave for maybe 20 seconds, and it's delicious. The inside gets nice and steamy and it's not dry, but yet you have a little bit of that crisper texture from toasting it. So it's fast and easy. Give this a try. This is just a nice way to sort of lighten up breakfast. Now, if you know, obviously you can do a little maple syrup on top as well if you want to do that, but you don't, I think you're going to find you don't need quite as much syrup and extra sweetness, because, you know, if you're adding fruit to your pancakes, that just gives it a nice natural sweetness. Just remember that when it comes to cooking, I mean, cooking is a powerful health behavior. So don't discount that. So I know that some of us like to cook, but some of us maybe don't as much. But when you are cooking, just think about what you're doing for your health. It's so important, and it is one of the best behaviors that we can employ as far as what we're doing on a daily basis. It's just getting in our kitchen and cooking. And like I said, it doesn't have to be complicated, and you can use some boxed mixes. You know, things like that can work, and you know, we just can make them even healthier on our own. All right, so get out there, enjoy, get some cooking in. I will see you next week, and stay well.